Hey guys, it's Ty from Ace Podcast Nation, the one-stop shop for podcasts, interviews, guests on all sorts of subjects. We got podcasts on mental health, football, films, music, and a lot more. So check us out. My first of three special guests this week, none other than actor, filmmaker, Welsh icon, coolest man to come out of Wales, some would say, Jonny Owen. Welcome, Jonny. Thanks for
Well, it's
coming.
very nice to be here, and that's a very nice intro. I'll take that. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's not even an exaggeration, I don't feel. So,
very kind. Very kind.
I think before we get going properly, I'd be amiss if I didn't mention the social media buzz around your other half's performance in BBC drama Line of Duty. What's that been like? I'm guessing you've had a lot of messages from people.
Yeah, it's been fantastic, mate. Obviously, it's a huge show now. It gets massive viewing figures, so it's become sort of a monster, really. She loves doing it. People love it, and I think I read a good article in the Guardian recently that said that it seemed to change cop shows as well, and I think that's true. It's apparently the police themselves really like it because it's a kind of a true reflection of what it's like, really, when you investigate sort of crime. You know, it shows all the digging, shows the long, laborious questioning you have to do, and yeah, I think it's that authenticity has made people fall in love with it. So long may it rain.
Yeah, I think the thing is with any TV show is people prefer that authenticity over the exaggeration or like the Hollywood in it up a bit. I think people, especially with British sort of TV dramas, people prefer like that gritty real life drama rather than that sort of exaggerated and stuff. I'm on season one. I only just discovered it, so I'm only like 3 episodes into season one. So I'm looking. I'm already in hooked. So it's going to be good.
Oh, good man. Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely bang on. Really, yeah, it's very truthful and honest, you know, and it's very British, and I think people have really sort of latched on and enjoyed that. It's you know, as I said, they have police advisors on set as well to make sure that it's done as realistically as possible, and like I said, I think that reflects in the story and in the show.
Definitely. What sort of stuff are you watching on TV these days?
I'm a big fan of Netflix. I'm currently in the middle for the second time of the Vietnam War, the great Ken Burns documentary series. I'm watching that. And like I said, I'm a fan of sort of a lot of the sort of stuff you get on Sky Atlantic now and things like that, like True Detective. Yeah, I do love a series. I'm looking forward to Game of Thrones coming back. I like Game of Thrones, so I kind of it's amazing really how my viewing has changed along with technology, because I pretty much watch the iPlayer and Netflix now most of the time. That's where you kind of find me sort of watching series.
Yeah, the only thing I watch live, I think, is like football or like UFC or boxing or something. Everything
Yeah,
else is streaming.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I really like BBC Four because I'm a middle-aged Welshman, so I love all the sort of the pop documentaries and things like that they do on BBC Four, and I'm a huge fan of history as well. So I watch that quite a lot on catch up. But like you said, live stuff, it's basically sport and mostly football. That's what I watch. My missus reckons I'm a man. I'm a creature of habit, and you can usually find me watching football most of the week.
Yeah. The thing is with like TV shows, these with streaming, you can watch it just when you want. You don't have to when we growing up, if you wanted to watch something, you had to make time, be there and watch it at the time it was on, or hope that you could record it on video and no one else was watching the TV. So I
Yeah.
mean, it's
I remember
time to
that very
change.
well.
It
Yeah,
suits me. Like I got 3 kids, so I need to be able to watch when I want rather than normal times, because kids overrun the TV, so I don't get to watch what I
yeah.
want to watch it.
Well, when I was a kid, you only had sort of kids programs on sort of when you came home from school around about 4 o'clock to about 5 o'clock. Sort of it was an hour they had, whereas now you've got whole channels dedicated to it. So kids, when they're in, they just tend to have the cartoons on, don't they, or the kids channels, and that's the way they
Yeah,
go.
that's it. Well, it was like you'd have kids TV till about till Blue Peter come on, and then that was it.
Yeah, that was it.
That's
Yeah.
the night.
Yeah. And it was nationwide in the news, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy how that's changed.
Yeah, it has.
But someone recommended Gamora to me. A few people actually have said, watch that.
I've watched that. It's fantastic. I've watched them all. They're brilliant. There's a new series out soon as well, which is so I'm looking forward to that. Excited.
Yeah, check that out. Loads of people have said, because I'll ask, like, oh, what are you watching? And they all say, watch Gamora. It's excellent. So I'm going to have to check it out.
Definitely. I think you'd really enjoy it.
And Narcs. Is Narcs on Netflix? About Pablo Escobar and stuff. That's supposed to be really good as well.
Yeah, I've watched that as well. Both of them highly recommended.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get going. I just got like a backlog of like TV shows which I want to watch, and he's just trying to find the time to watch them all.
Yeah, I tend to watch them when I get into bed at the night, and I have like an hour and a half watching. That's when I do my most of my sort of Netflix catching up and all that kind of stuff, and then fall asleep. Beautiful.
Yeah, I end up falling asleep while I'm watching it is the problem, and then I have to go find where I was.
Yeah, you can never remember, can you?
But so when I spoke to you briefly the other day, you said you were finishing off filming last week. Anything you're allowed to talk about, or?
Yeah, I can't really say too much, but I have got another football film that's coming out in hopefully the autumn. We'll go to cinemas and a few places, and it's like kind of my last of my trilogy of football films. Obviously, I did Don't Take Me Home, and I did I Believe in Miracles for the last few years. This is the third and final one, but I'm kind of working with the people who did Senna and Amy and the Maradona films. So really good people. So. Yeah, and that comes out sort of. I think they'll be able to announce in the summer what it's about and all the rest of it. But hopefully people enjoy it. And like I said, I'm a bit of a lucky boy really in that I get to make films about football, which is my true love really. You know.
Yeah, God, Joy. Well, I was going to say, like, you've made a couple of incredible football documentaries. The I Believe in Miracles one about Brian Clough. Like, I've got no links to Brian Clough other than I used to find him entertaining when I was a kid, like his interviews and stuff. I've got no links to sort of Nottingham Forest or whatnot, but it was awesome to watch. Like, you couldn't take your eyes off it. Just every single moment of it felt like it mattered. Do you know what I mean? It didn't feel like there was like any filler in it. It was just you had to watch every second and every minute.
Yeah.
How long did
it took about 18 months to make 18 months, 2 years, I think, altogether to get everybody together and do all the interviews and then get all the footage. But like you said, it was a remarkable story, not just in football, in sport, really, in those 5 years, what he did and what he achieved there with that team. And I think, like you said, there was no room for any facts, really. You just had to sort of tell what happened because so many incredible things happened. You know, the fact that he took them up and then they won the title and they won the European Cup and then they won the European Cup again. It was... you know, and it's never happened before, and it's never happened since. So it is one of the sort of great stories, saying in world sports, and I really enjoyed doing it because obviously I got to know the team as well, and I found them to be really like sort of interesting characters and what they achieved, and you know the way they did it and the way that he put it together. And like saying, we found a great soundtrack for it, loads of soul and funk and all this amazing sort of stuff we found on film, 70s films. The colours were sort of very sort of vibrant, you know, and it just seemed to work really. Like you said, when we put it all together, you kind of got a feeling, oh, this is working really, you know. And I was really pleased the way it turned out, and obviously delighted with the response it had.
Yeah, and I bet you heard some incredible stories, though. You know, talking to all those players and all the people around there, I bet there was plenty of stories which didn't make the cut as well. But I mean, there's so many interesting characters in that team as well as Brian Clough. There was like you know, you got like Robertson and like Martin O'Neill. Was Martin O'Neill in that team? I think he was, wasn't he?
Yeah,
or
he was.
He after?
No, he was in that team. Yeah, he played on the right side, and Robert was obviously. I mean, John Robertson was was the great player of that team, and you know, and they all said the same thing. But what was remarkable about that was he was kind of this journeyman footballer going nowhere, a little bit overweight, playing in the second division team. Was on the transfer list when Clough got there. they were seriously considering selling him to Partick Thistle, and he was on his way. And Clough comes in and sees obviously something in him and thinks, no, we'll hang on to him, and turns him into, arguably the best player in Europe for about 4 or 5 years. And those stories, are amazing. And I think the way he put the team together as well, it did have a kind of a Dirty Dozen feel to it. Finding these sort of misfits and players who were considered to be too aggressive, and players who were considered to be too mouthy, and players who were considered past their sell-by date, and players who were in the reserve team, and putting them all together and becoming the best team in Europe. It was a great story, and one that everybody has a smile on their face when they watch, because it just goes to show if Clough can do it there, it can be done anywhere. So I think a lot of football teams and fans, especially, they like the story because it gives them a kind of a hope that one day it can happen to their team too.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, there's nothing's ever come close. I mean, I suppose the closest you'd get was like Leicester winning the Premier League. But
Yeah.
I mean, no one's ever come close to going up and then just to win everything or win the big trophies. And like you say, it's largely a team of sort of misfits almost.
Yeah.
And bringing them all together it's quite incredible.
Great story. And I went through the 2 tournaments that they entered, that what was called the European Cup then, and you actually had to win the league then. It really was the Champions League then. It was a European Cup now, where the team that's finished 3rd or 4th can get in and potentially win it. Then you had to win the title to be in the European Cup, and all the teams, they're all there. Real Madrid are in it, Juventus, all the teams that we know now, and Ajax, and they beat everybody. They beat everybody that went in front of them, and you just think to yourself, the first time they get into Europe, their first game in Europe is against Liverpool, who were the double European reigning champions at the time, and they beat them. So, they did everything they had to do really to be seen as a great football team, and and they are a great football team. And one of the great things about the film is that a lot of the players say to me that it's kind of, they're always in those lists now of the top 10 greatest teams of all time, and a lot of them say to me it's because the film has helped sort of put them back in people's minds again, really, and I'm really pleased about that, because they deserve to be back in people's minds and in those lists as well, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. And like you say, there was no like gimmies in that in them days, like some of the in the group stages now. You get some teams which they lose all their games 3 or 4-0. They finish bottom of the group. It was all, like you say, just the champions.
Cup competition in them days, a proper cup competition. We had 2 legs. You had to play the champions, and that was it. You had to get on with it. Amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just makes the achievement even better. Do you know what I mean? It's just adds to the story and the achievement at the end of it. So obviously, the other football film you made was "Don't Take Me Home."
Yeah.
Which I've got to be honest, every time I watch it, it brings me to bloody tears. And I've watched it a lot. But I mean, I do not know how you managed to make that through like this stuff which you filmed out there and stuff. Just from the wave of excitement, the sheer disbelief. I don't know how you managed to do that without I'd have been just constantly drunk and overexcited trying to film these, interviews or segments, and because you just I spent the whole summer walking around.
Yeah, well, I think that I was really lucky with it actually, because what happened was I went out as a fan, and I loved it. And obviously, as the tournament progressed, you could see that something was happening, a story was developing, because a lot of us went out there and we were just really happy to be in a major tournament, and what would be. We're just going to enjoy it, because it was the first time we'd got there since 1958, to a major tournament finals. So, but as obviously we started winning games and progressing to the tournament, the Welsh FA then started saying to me, look, we'd be thinking about making a film. So, I just sort of said to the people who were out there, were just filming what we could. We managed to get the players when we were back. And obviously the big thing was I managed to get a lot of fan phone footage, which was sent to me, which I literally appealed on my social media and said, to my mates and things, send me any stuff you took on your phones. And I think that really helped it, because we live in a world now where people do, film and take photos almost every day. So people are used to it. And I think that helped capture the fans' sort of feelings as well, the energy of how they felt during games, how they took sort of those great images of just after the game finished and the team are coming over and clapping them and goals and things like that. And I think that really helped the film because it felt as much of a fans' film as it did the team, because that was really important to me. It was that tournament where the fans and the team and the management, everybody came together. The country basically came together and just had the best summer of our lives. And it was just an honour and a pleasure to be there, really, in amongst it all. I will still say, probably to the day I die, it was the best summer that I can ever remember. Really, the attitude, the feeling, the way everybody was. There was never anything like it, you know. And I made the film. We had to make the film very quickly when I got back, and if we could have captured just a little bit of that in it, then I was a happy man, really.
Yeah, I mean, that summer was just like, I didn't manage to go out there because I got a few health problems, and even in Cardiff, you'd just be walking around and you could see people just talking about it in the shops, and it was just every day was just like this disbelief of, it's like you say, it started off, we're there, let's just enjoy this. This is just going to be incredible, just to be there and to, just to experience a tournament, because none of us thought it was ever going to happen in our generation or, in our lifetime. And I think after Giggs and Bellamy and all them sort of retired, it almost felt like that was the golden generation, until then you had like the Bales and the Ramseys come through. But it was just, and as you say, as the tournament went on, the disbelief started to turn to excitement. And by the Belgium game, it was just a fever pitch then, because you're thinking, we'll just hopefully don't get stuffed, give them a good game, and, what'll be will be, and it's a one-off game type thing. And even when Belgium scored, I remember it was just like, oh well, it's been a good run.
Yeah.
And then suddenly they equalise, and you're like, oh, Jesus Christ, we're still going.
I know.
But,
it was amazing.
It was
that night was the best night ever. It was just a great night. Whenever you just beating the tournament favourites, the $1 billion Belgian team, as they call them, some of the best players in the world, packed that team, and De Bruyne and sort of, Hazard, they were all in there. Lukaku, it was just ridiculous. We beat them. And I
all the subs come on.
I know, yeah. And do you remember? I remember Aaron saying, Rambo saying, he says, I remember looking around thinking, we're having a good game here against the best team in the tournament, and he's right. It was you could see almost the belief sort of flooding through the team, and we were the better side. We deserved to win that game. And it took us a piece of world class athleticism from Ronaldo, really, to sort of to beat us in the semi final as well. And I think we badly missed Aaron and Ben Davis in that semi as well, and. Who knows? We could have sneaked that as well. But listen, we did fantastic at the semi-final.
I say to this day that Ramsey in the semi-final, and I felt like we could have nicked it. I felt like he was such a big miss. He'd been so good in the whole tournament.
He was in the form. He was in the form of his life. He was the form player in the tournament, arguably, and a lot of sort of foreign journalists said that to me. And the other thing as well was, because England had such a disastrous tournament, they dismissed the tournament. It's a poor tournament and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But when you were out in France, you had a completely different view. You had all the other journalists from all the other countries talking to you and saying to you, Aaron Ramsey is the... So, we were in the middle of something where, our best player, Bale was scoring lots of goals and, is the best player probably in the team. But our best player form-wise in that tournament was missing for us, and that was a big, big loss. And I'm with you. I think it could have been a different game if Aaron played, and, who knows what would have happened then.
Yeah, but then it's one of those things, and at the start of the season, the start of the tournament, if someone had said to you semi-final, you'd have been like, yeah, well, I'll take that. But then when you get there and it's such a close game and you've got an injury and you just think, oh, what could have been? It's a weird one. Obviously, when you come down and you think about it afterwards, it's just like semi-final, Jesus. But I mean, I remember the night of the semi-final after the game, I was gutted. Like, you're proud, and you're so proud of the players and the fans, and obviously the fans were so well behaved. And they were so popular with all the, every video which you saw of the Welsh fans on the news, it was
Mm.
all positive. And I think a lot of other nations, maybe apart from England, fell in love with the Welsh, the Welsh team and the fans, because of the
Yeah,
relationship that the fans and the players had. You had all those, like the videos of the guy crying
yeah,
just after the national anthem in one of I think it was the Northern Ireland game, wasn't it?
yeah,
And all the pint glasses going up in the air at the fan parks and stuff.
yeah.
You know, and like you say, they all those clips they added to the film, because then it wasn't just like a film about the Wales team, the players, and you filming and documenting that. It was
Mm.
the whole experience, and that together stronger, I suppose. And as
Yeah.
other English, I say English fans again, they mock it perhaps sometimes. But that summer just incorporated that to a T. You couldn't have. There couldn't have been a tighter relationship between the fans and the players, I don't think.
No, I think they've. I think England, if anything, learned from it a bit. Really, when what they tried to do in this World Cup, and they did it really well. And they've got a manager that they associate with, and the fans were different. And I think people looked at Wales and what they did in 2016 at the Euros and thought, well, you know what, we'd rather be like that. Where the press get behind the team and the fans are with the team, and you got a chance then. So I think if anything, England and other countries have looked at that and gone, that's a really just a credit. They've been a credit to the tournament, on and off the pitch, and that's where you want to aspire to.
Yeah, it's funny you say about the media there, because I did a football podcast last week with Haley, and basically we came across and we were talking about the Montenegro game with Raheem Sterling and like all the racist abuse and that and all that sort of horrible stuff, but
Yeah.
how well he had matured and over the years and how he dealt with it was unbelievable.
Mm.
But what we sort of went on to then was the media in England. They seem to want to beat down the players. There's always negative. They're spoilt rich boys and all this type of thing. They seem to. It's very rare that you see positive press about any of them. Whereas in Wales, the media is completely different in that the relationship with the players is all positive, and I just think, like you say, they learned from it in the way that they didn't go for like your Sven or your Capello as a manager. They went for the under-21s manager, which was exactly the type of thing which I think Wales had done with speed, and they brought in sort of former players rather than the big names. But do you think that with like, sorry, I got a bit sidetracked.
That's all right.
So like with the recently, and especially in the Championship and in Scotland, there's been some fans, haven't there, like attacking the players coming on the pitch. Do you think that obviously there's fan rivalry, and there's always going to be that between clubs, especially derbies and things like this? But do you think the way the media, the tabloid media, portray young footballers, do you think it turns that rivalry into this almost like a blind hatred, because all you see is they're rich, they behave badly, they don't care about the fans, and it's this and this and this and this. And I just wonder whether that has an impact on how rivalries turn from rivalries, which there's can be quite fierce, to then being more than that.
I
Do you
mean,
think the media influences that?
well, I think the media has a role to play in it. Certainly, I think there's always been strong rivalry in football, and there's been times in the past, certainly in the 70s and 80s, when fans would often run on the pitch. There's nothing new, really. I don't think. I think what football does is it heightens tensions, and that's always been part of it. I do think the one thing that has changed is that social media has become hugely important in football. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. It's a good thing in a lot of respects. You You can sort of articulate your view. You can sell tickets. You can, there's all sorts of good things. There's also a negative side to it. There's trolling and bullying and all kinds of things that happen on social media as well. And I think that doesn't help certain things. I think footballers have a bad rap sometimes, if I'm honest. I've worked, and I've met lots of footballers. They're young. Lots of them, they pay as they earn, so they pay whatever the sort of tax they have on their wages. So they may have hugely sort of massive wages now. That's because of the TV markets, but they pay tax on it. So that's something that's very rarely mentioned. And also, they can't win. I seen something the other week where a footballer was involved at Nottingham Forest, for argument's sake, with promoting a food bank, saying that we were going to have a food bank because there's problems with homelessness in the city, and somebody wrote, "Oh, I just find this really disgusting. A footballer on thousands of pounds a week advertising that people should donate food for a food bank." Now, if he didn't say anything, they'd be slated because they're footballers and they don't care. If they do say something, then they're slated anyway because they're rich and they're in front of a no-win situation. A lot of footballers, they do loads of work in the community as well, which is really interesting to me. I mean, I do a bit of work now with Nottingham Forest, and every Christmas they go to the to the children's cancer ward, and these are young men, some of them in their late teens, early 20s, and they go around and they speak to young terminally ill children and take them presents. It's a remarkable thing they do. Now, when I was that age, I never had to do anything like that at all, But, they do get a bad rap then a lot of the time, but they also do good things as well. So I think, while there's always going to be the media that wants to, report on gossip and rumour, and that's always the way of life, they should also sort of be making people aware they do lots of good things as well. And I think it's really interesting what you said earlier on about Raheem Sterling. That's what's happened now. He's getting a fair press now, finally. Whereas before he got a very one-sided press, that he was seen as a kind of a bit of a bad boy and all this kind of thing. Whereas now people are saying, well, actually, he does a lot. He does this for charity and he helps these people. And I think as long as it's balanced and fair, then I think that's the way forward. The problem starts, is that when they sometimes certain sections of the media, not all, there's very good journalists, but sometimes they pick on somebody and that's when the problems can start for me sometimes, and where you end up in situations where people invading the pitch and trying to attack players, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah, and I think like Jack Grealish is probably one of those players actually who is targeted constantly. I think he's only early 20s at the most, and I just think what I was like at like 19, 20, and if I had loads of money, I'd be going on a holiday and getting drunk with my mates and doing this, that, and the other. And I think they're entitled to go and do that as young men, as long as it's within the law and, they're not doing anything which they shouldn't from that point of view. It's like, let them have their off season, let them go on holiday and, and what tends to happen now is because the media pick up on that so much, is they don't mingle with the fans as much as like the lower league players. At the end of the season they'll have drinks and a player of the year award and they'll mingle with the fans. And I think that's almost a lost thing these days, because the Premier League players, they don't want to risk that bad publicity or someone making a film of them when they're drunk, or because there's camera phones everywhere.
We only seen what happened this week with Jordan Pickford. Where he was out, he was goaded. There were people shouting things to him and butterfingers, and then of course he gets into a fracas, and now he's ended up in a situation where he'll probably be told, "Well, what were you doing in that situation anyway?" Where he was down like a local pub having a drink. He can't do that anymore. So when fans then go, "Oh, they're so isolated from us" and all the rest of it, but what do they expect if they can't go out?
That's right.
They've been shouted at, You can't have
No, that's it. And what I found interesting about the Jordan Pickford thing is that I think it was the Sun or whoever had all the videos up of him in the fracas, but then when the videos came out a bit later of him being goaded and abused, they were like just a little small video on the social media. They weren't on with the story. And I think actually what came out, I think I read earlier, what set him off was that the boys who were goading him had targeted his fiance,
That's
which
right.
is
Yeah.
what kicked it off. And
Yeah.
and all of that puts a whole different spin on drunken footballer having a brawl, or England goalkeeper having a brawl after being on an all day watching Sunderland play at Wembley.
Yeah.
And the way it was portrayed was like he'd been out all day on a piss, and then Sunderland had lost. He was like drowning his sorrows, and then he got into a fight.
Yeah.
And in actual fact, it was probably he was out with his friends watching the football, having a few drinks. Yeah, he'd probably had drunk too much, and he probably had people goading him and saying stuff to him for the majority of the day, on and off. And then eventually, when they targeted his partner, he reacted like 99.9% of people would.
Yeah, you would, and that's the problem, And then, like you're saying, they're in a no-win situation really, because they're saying they told they're aloof and they don't go out and don't see him anymore. Well, they can't, they can't go to those places because, ultimately people will have an opinion. I remember last year, two of the young Forest players put a thing on Instagram where they were in Nando's, I think, or the TFI Fridays they were in. And they just got a load of fans going, what are you doing in there? It's not good for you. And you should be, eating chicken salad. And I'm thinking, God, they can't do anything. It's like you're expected to be live like a monk. Do you know what I mean? So I just
crazy.
It's impossible. They're in an impossible situation. But listen, they know it. They're well paid, which is, they are well paid. And they just got to think to yourself, all right, boys, what I would say to them is you've got 10 years, 15 years this if you're lucky, which would be brilliant. So, roll with it, go with it. And then once you're retired, you can do whatever you want then. You know what I mean? That's what I'd say to them.
Yeah. 10 years of a top professional, Premier League footballer.
Yeah.
Set for life.
Yeah.
And then you can go and enjoy it.
Go and live there, whatever life you want, and you'll be fine. But while you're there, it's just not worth it because unfortunately there's nothing you can do, which is right.
There's always people who want to tear successful people down. And those people who, the guys who were goading him, all they wanted was the reaction so they could film it. And that's why they were filming it while they were goading him, because they wanted that reaction so they can then sell it to the Sun or whoever else.
Absolutely.
But, anyway, moving away from idiots who goad footballers. So I think I sent you a message about 3 months ago, I think it was, about I'd watched Svengali again.
Yeah.
It's just awesome. I just love it. It's one of my favourite films of the last 10 years because obviously when I grew up, things like Quadrophenia and stuff like that, they'd been out for a while. So I was born 81. So a lot of all the cool films, Clockwork Orange and Quadrophenia and that, they were out. And I grew up on that type of film.
Yeah.
And then they sort of dried up a bit. Those sort of, do you know what I mean? Like the cult sort of icon films with mods or with cool music. You had like the British films like Lock, Stock and stuff who still had that feel to them. Yeah. But there wasn't really, do you know what I mean? There wasn't, I'm not explaining it very well, but when I saw Svengali the first time, I was like, yeah, this reminds me of my teens and when I was growing up and people, I had mates who were in a band and we was having a drink and going to a little bar fly on a Friday in Cardiff and just watching bands and stuff. And it really, really brought it all back to me, all those days of what I can remember of them, should I say. But it was really good. But how did that get started? Because that was an internet series.
It was. Yeah, it was about like 10, 15 years ago now. This is the early days of the internet. We decided just to put some stuff up on YouTube, and it shows how long ago it was. This is before Twitter has even come out, I think, and also you only could load up a certain amount of minutes at that time because the internet just couldn't cope with it in them days. So we used to put up little sort of 4 or 5 minute virals. This character called Dixie, who's arrived in London and is trying to get his band signed. He's convinced he's got the next big band, the next big thing, and it grew from there. Really, it just got a great cult following, and then it got to the point where some sort of production people were interested and said, "Can you expand the story?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I can have a go." And in the end, it was like, "Can you make it into a film?" So we said, "Okay," and then it got to the point where Universal got involved, which is ridiculous, really, isn't it? If you think of it, and Universal got involved, and that was it. It became a major film that went out, in British cinemas. Amazing, really. And like I said, it all started on this idea of this Welsh mod in London trying to get his band signed.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the fantastic things these days about social media and YouTube and stuff like that, is that people can create from their house. They don't have to necessarily always go down, go to university and do drama or art or film and stuff like that. You can get the software to do video editing in your house. You can do a podcast like I am from your house.
Yeah.
You can, you get people who obviously when Vine was around, and you get some really creative, talented people who because they didn't have the qualifications or the ability to be able to go and get a job in TV or entertainment or film or video editing, they perhaps wouldn't have had the same opportunities which they get just from having YouTube, social media, things like that. It's just changed the way people can create, I suppose. And I mean, my kids, they nag me constantly. They want to start a YouTube channel because they see these young men and women just cracking on. And I suppose you were the first one, maybe, with you did it before Twitter. Maybe one of the first.
Yeah, I think we were sort of. I do get a lot, bless them, like emails from people for the last 2 years saying, "Oh, you were one of the first things we seen," and all the rest of it. At the time, we didn't really have much idea. What I was just trying to do was thought myself tell a really good story, and the best way to tell the story was to film little bits and put it on what was then, the platforms you had. MySpace was still really big then. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
So it's that's where we started, and I do think it's very liberating when people have the technology to sort of realize their artistic dreams, really. There's no two ways about it. That's very much in the spirit of punk and DIY, sort of like, art, in the sense that, you haven't got to rely on anybody else to sort of to allow you to do these things. You can have a go yourself. Like you said, you can record a podcast in your own house now. You can record, a band and mix it in your own bedroom. You can do all those things. You can film stuff and edit it, on a phone. For cheaply, whereas certainly 20, 30 years ago you couldn't do that. Film was expensive, editing suites were expensive, recording studios were expensive. Sort of anything like that was money. Whereas now, you're able to do it often on a phone, which is brilliant. And if that allows creative flowering, right across all society, then I'm all for that, all for it.
Yeah, and I think like for example, with me personally, like I had an accident in 2008, which meant that I had like spinal issues and I developed really bad anxiety.
Mm.
And so for the last couple of years, I've said, I'm going to do a podcast. I want to do a podcast on football and mental health and stuff like that. I want to do it. And it was always like, oh, I can't. And the anxiety side of it always stopped me. And then the more I thought of it, I thought, well, actually, I can do that. I can do it without having to go into big groups of people and raising that sort of anxiety side of it. And I can do it from my house. I've got the equipment to do it. And basically, I started this partly to do the mental health podcast and raise a bit of awareness about that. And if I can help one person, I'll be happy. But also, it's helping me with my own sort of mental health struggles, if you like, where because of my injuries, it meant that I was not active and I was not doing the sport and stuff that I used to do. So it's given me like a focus to try and help me with that. And I think I wonder how many around the world who do podcasts or videos or YouTube stuff, Vines. How much, how many people who've got these similar issues? How many people is it helping because they're able to, like you say, express themselves creatively from their own house, from their own comfort. They haven't got to go to like a recording studio or mix with people or big groups of people with cameras, and they're not comfortable, but they still get to do it. And I think there's talent to be discovered, which perhaps couldn't or didn't have the ability to be discovered previously, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's therapeutic, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Which is great, and that's really important. It's the most important thing, I think. They say with mental health is to sort of, to help yourself first, really, isn't it? To sort of, make yourself as well as you possibly can. As comfortable as you possibly can. And like you said, if that's operating in an environment that you enjoy being in, then that's a fantastic thing, and and that can only be a good thing as well.
Absolutely. So that's the benefits of social media, and
yeah, there's so many benefits. I mean, that's the thing.
And I like to think they outweigh the negatives. There is plenty of negatives, and like trolls and things like this, and bullies. You come across them in all walks of life, and unfortunately, Twitter is a breeding ground for them. But I think if you've got the ability to just not respond and just mute it and concentrate on the positive, there's so much positive in the world that that's the way to go for me, anyway.
It's the only way. Positive is the only. Yeah. Positive is the only way to beat negativity. It's the only way.
One of the first times I came across you, actually, and I watched it again yesterday, was the TV video that you did, the video you did for the BBC before the FA Cup final.
Oh yeah.
And I remember watching it on the day, like we were traveling up, and I just remember watching it, and again, like tears. I think you've done it to me about 3 or 4 times now, Johnny. Is just with your filmmaking is sort of brought like a little tear or a real pang of emotion, and like that day was an emotional day anyway, because it just had that feeling that I can't believe we're here. I never thought I'd see Cardiff play at Wembley in an FA Cup final. And yeah, it was a shame about the result, and it was a frustrating game. But as a day overall, it was just emotion from the moment I got up to the moment I went to bed, I think.
It was a great day. It was a great achievement, Cardiff getting there, because obviously Cardiff had been a lower league club really for most of my life. And then obviously, something happened when Sam Hammam came, and there was an impetus started, and there was investment and all those things. And for whatever you think of Sam, good or bad, he did begin the sort of the revolution that happened in Cardiff, which has seen them end up as at least a top Championship club, if not a Premier League club as they are now. And I think that the cup final was one of definitely the highlights of my life, especially watching football. It was great, especially the fact that in that run we went up to Borough and beat a really good Middlesbrough team up there 2-0, and it was a good side as well. We had a really good team then, and unlucky not to win the final, really, or unlucky not to get a draw anyway. It was one of them, but like I said, a proud moment in the club's history, really.
And funny enough, when I watched the video, I sort of was having a look on your wiki page, and it turns out that video for the BBC beforehand, it got really, really good like feedback. There was a write up in the Guardian about it, and it's like a sort of 5-10 minute video, I think. Just about Cardiff as a club and the journey from to Wembley and over the years, and Sam Hammam and that type of stuff. So even then, you were making sort of videos and films which resonate with people, and I think that's what I enjoy a lot about your documentaries. Is, like I said, even with like Brian Clough, I've got no affinity to Forest or to him, but the way the story was told, it resonated with me as a football fan. And I suppose that's all you want at the end of the day, isn't it? Is you want people to feel the story.
Yeah, I mean, we're all, football fans. We all kind of a common sort of denominator that we all love our teams and we love the game. Do you know what I mean? So, and there's things in the game that happen, and regardless of who you support, they're great stories, really. And I think that's what I try to do. Is like, I remember when the great Johan Cruyff died a few years back. Everybody kind of felt the same way. Because of the way he played and what he brought to the game, playing for Ajax and Barcelona and the Dutch team. It's just some things almost transcend club rivalries, don't they? And they become more about the game itself than anything. And sometimes in those moments, you can try and capture them in a film. And even in the Cardiff one, so many fans of other clubs sort of said to me they really, really enjoyed that because there was moments in there where it spoke to them as a fan of another club. You know what I mean? And I think that's what we try to do. Really, it's all just about being a football fan and loving the game for the right reasons, really.
Yeah. In terms of Cardiff, do you think they're going to pull off a miracle and stay up? Or do you think it's a bridge too far?
Well, they've done fantastic already this season. I mean, they're still in with the shout. Fulham went last night. They've spent £100 million. Cardiff have been very, very sensible, I think, this time with the money. So they're in a really strong position. Even if they do come down, they'll have the parachute payments, and they've got a good manager who knows the Championship certainly like the back of his hand. He's given the Premier League a good run. They're still in with a great shout. Very unlucky on Sunday with the decisions against Chelsea. And whatever happens, they've been getting over 30,000 every game. They can be really proud of what they've done this season, as a football club. I mean, it's been a tough season. You had the dreadful thing that happened, in the transfer window where the poor lad passed away, and so it's not been an easy season for Cardiff City at all. But you know what? They've shown real spirit. They've shown real heart, and if they can still hang on in there, who knows? I mean, my concern is, do I think Burnley and Newcastle and Southampton are worse than Cardiff? I don't know. Do I think that Huddersfield and Fulham are worse than Cardiff? Yes, I felt that all season. But do I think another club? I'm not so sure. So at the moment, I'm just a bit nervous that that might have knocked the wind out of us, really, what happened in Chelsea. But, listen, you don't know with Neil. He could get them back up again, and we can see what happens. One thing I'm certain of is they'll scrap for as long as they need to scrap. Do you know what I mean? They won't give up.
No, and I think you can see that this Salah thing, that it took a lot out of Warnock. You can see in his face, he's so emotional still. And I think it's been a real struggle for him personally. And I think he's done a remarkable job because they've spent little to no money. If you told him at the start of the season that you'd get to the 3rd of April, just before you play Man City, 2 teams are already down, and you're still within a chance of staying up, they'd have snapped your hand off every day.
Yeah, they would have.
I think, though, the Chelsea game, a win against Chelsea, and that's massive, isn't it?
It would have been huge. Massive. Because there was 3 points that you wouldn't have been targeting. And how do you motivate players after that? Because if you lose a game because of bad refereeing decisions, that's tough to take. That's a difficult one to get players. But if anybody can, he can do it. And like you said, they've spent hardly any money in comparison. They've been very sensible in that way, and you've got to give a lot of credit for that because they could have gone for it like Fulham did. But next year they'll have those payments. He knows the Championship. He's got a strong squad. He's got a physical squad, which is what you need in the Championship. So it's not always not. I always think if you go up, then you've got some money coming your way, and you've got a chance then to use it to try and get back up again. And that's what City you've got to try and do, really. I think if they do go down, but listen, they're still in there. They're still in with a shout, and they just got to keep battling.
When they beat Man City tonight 3-0, they'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. I would throw a cat.
That would cause a few issues around the place.
Yeah.
But I thought, do you think Warnock will retire at the end of the season?
I don't know. I mean, the thing is, what people, not that they don't forget, but what people have got to remember is that when he went into Cardiff, they were looking like they could get relegated from the Championship. He sorted that out, and then he took them up. you know, and then he's at the moment he's in the shout to keep in the Premier League. He's still got a lot to offer. He's adored there like no manager I can ever remember really. He's a perfect fit for Cardiff. You know, we do love a fist waver from the dugouts in Cardiff.
Yeah.
We don't care how it gets in the back of the net. All we care about is the ball hitting the back of the net. So he's got no worries there about how he plays and his playing style. Nobody cares in Cardiff as long as we win matches, which I love about us. So, you know, he's got all the attributes. He goes out into the valleys. He goes into the city of Cardiff. He meets the fans. So, you know, he's got a great relationship with the club. So, you know, he could stay there for a few more years, you know, and take him back up again maybe next year. Or, you know, he's got no problems. There's nobody that I can see is going to ever turn on, you know, Neil Warnock at Cardiff. So he's got a job for as long as he wants, really. So why not?
Yeah. I think, you know, he's prickly as well, isn't he? Which I think Cardiff fans can relate to.
Yeah.
And I think they like that aspect of his personality too. I think the one thing which makes me think maybe he'll retire is he does seem to have taken like the Salah thing personally. And I mean, it's easy to, or not easy to forget, but people perhaps outside of Cardiff who are critical is they forget, you know, Neil Warnock's a human being. There was reports in sort of just before Christmas that we wanted the boy, but there was also reports that he didn't want to come. So somewhere, if that's true, somewhere in between, he's been convinced to come for whatever reason, and Warnock would have played part in that. And I think what hit me was the boy Fabio, who used to play for us, did an interview like a couple of weeks ago, and he said like he had spoken to Salah and he had said, you know, go to Cardiff, and he spoke of his guilt then because he, you know, he'd had a hand in his decision sort of thing, which you know you can't feel responsible for that in any way. But it made me think if he feels like that, you know, Neil Warnock bound to feel, you know, something similar because he would have had a hand in the club to it. So, you know, he's a human being. He's bound to hit him. And I do wonder then at his age, maybe he'll think, right, that's enough. I'm going to see out my family sort of thing. I hope he doesn't because I do think he's the man for Cardiff. And I think even if he doesn't keep us up, I think he's the right fit. There's no one out there at the moment, which I think I'd like him in that, you know, Cardiff, realistically, in terms of a.
I think you're right. I think you know he's a big family man, isn't he? I think he's got a lovely place. I think he's down in Cornwall or somewhere, and he's got a place, and you know it's all that thing which you go. But he's a football man as well, and he loves the game, loves the club. So you know, who knows? He may have the summer, and they may say to him, "Come on, let's give it another shot next year." You know, and I'm talking as if they've gone down already, and you know that's not the case yet. So it'll be interesting to see. I think if he keeps this up, there probably might be even more chance in retiring because he might go, well, I've done it now. Do I want another season of that? Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
Stress.
The stress of it. But hey, listen, you know, he's going to be a god there forever. He's forever going to be one of the great managers of Cardiff City. No two ways about that.
Yeah. Look, I don't want to keep you too long, Johnny. I'm conscious of that. But
you got these questions to ask me, haven't you?
I know, but I think what I wanted to speak to you really about was Welsh football. Let's just quickly touch on that if you don't mind. Okay, do you think Giggs is doing a good job?
Who's Giggsy? Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I think he's been terrific, and I think it was really brave that the Welsh FA went with him in the end because I know there was quite vociferous, you know, people saying this and that, and there was even sort of, you know, people saying when you know this last 2 weeks that he's too much going around with the Champions League trophy and he should be watching Welsh players and all that. And I understand all that. But there's no two ways about it. What he's got is massive respect in the game, massive respect from younger players. You know, you only got to hear Bale and Ramsey. I'm talking about how important Giggs was to them growing up and playing football. So he's had a positive effect on young Welsh kids playing football in the same way as Bale and Ramsey has for a generation coming through now, like your Dan James and all the rest of it. And I just think, you know, he's given the kids a go, you know, and an international manager. They haven't got time to train players. All an international manager can do is organise a team and put them out to play. and try and get them playing for their country. That's all, because you've only got 4 or 5 days. You haven't got weeks and weeks on the training ground. And Chris Coleman did that brilliantly in the end, and we talked about that in the film. All I do, he said, is I get them, I organise them, and I tell them to go out and express themselves. And that, and it worked to Wales, and I think Giggs is very much like that as well. So I'm a fan. We've got to stick with him. You get any kind of result out in Hungary and Croatia, and boy, we got another great chance of qualifying for another tournament. And we all know qualifying for a major tournament now is everything, because it just changes the dynamic of us as a country, because suddenly you're on a world stage and people can see us and they know about us. And whenever we do qualify, we always do really well.
Yeah,
Twice we always do really well. So, let's try and get there, as much as we can.
And like what Giggs is doing is he's not like beating a dead horse in terms of keeping those experienced players going until they just cannot go anymore. He's bringing in these young players, these under 21s who've been excellent the last few years. Get them in and get them in amongst the team. Get them training with them. Get them playing in some cases. Yeah. And if you think if those young players, the amount of young players in that squad now, if they could qualify this time around, those young players will have no fear over qualification for the next 10, 15 years.
Exactly. You've got to get to where England are with qualification. England, great. They just expect to qualify now. They just go, right, get this out the way, get there. And then, so the tournament became the thing for them that they were sort of not panicking about, but where they sort of think, but they kind of like got over that a bit, didn't they, in Russia, where let's just enjoy it. The same as we did. But for us, it's the qualification is the thing for us now. It's become a mental block. And so if we can get over that, then, it'll be really important, because like you said, that generation of players then will just go, right, this is what we do. We qualify for every tournament now, and it's such a big thing that.
There's so many exciting talents coming through that, it's not like you're thinking, when Bale goes, we're going to be really struggling. Obviously, he's world class player, and we'll miss him. But there seems to be a handful of exceptionally talented Welsh footballers ready to come in and do a job. But what fans like me and you and everyone else has got to understand is young players, sometimes they can lack consistency, and sometimes they'll make mistakes because they're young men, really young in some cases, and I think if we could qualify this time around, I think it's huge, because there's so many young players there that it just will change the whole mentality. And like you say, it's that block, isn't it? Instead of being, can we qualify? Well, we will qualify. And it seems with England as well, is the more you qualify, the easier groups you get.
Yeah.
Which makes it more possible.
Exactly. I think that Dan James is obviously the really exciting young talent. I never thought in my lifetime already I'd be shouting to Gareth Bale, give it to him! Give it to him! I watched the Slovakia game. But he's obviously going to be in the Premier League next year, and his club's circling him, and I think he's got everything to go to the very top. He's quick, he's got low centre of gravity, he's strong, can beat a man, finish. So we got a real chance for that kid. So, like I said, it's very, very exciting.
Yeah, and I think Giggs deserves credit as well for the game against Trinidad. He could have just played a full strength side, but he was thinking, no, Slovakia in a couple of days, that's what's important. So I need Bale and Ramsey and whoever else. Well, Ramsey didn't play, but I need these players fully fit, so I'm going to rest them. And that's what he should be doing.
Yeah,
but he can't win, because if he doesn't play him, he gets criticised for not playing him. And if they play and get injured, he gets criticised for that. So,
there you go.
It is what it is. Right. Yeah. So what I'm going to do, we're going to go now, and then Johnny's going to film a quick video for me, quick fire questions before I let him go. I've kept him a bit too long now. Johnny, where can people find you on social media?
I'm on Twitter at Jonny Owen Film, JONYOWEN Film, FILM, all one word. And that's where I live, really, on that Twitter account.
Cool. You can find me at ACEcast _nation. Thanks for watching, and subscribe, like, and share. Thank you. Cheers. Nice one.